Sigh. How the zog am I gonna get all this stuff done? It just keeps going. Welcome back to the Ruins Confessed. Old Big Mek here, and that's right, I have a shorter attention span than a bomb squig in a target-rich environment, which means I got too many things. So what are we gonna do about it? I'll tell you. Let's get into it. Yeah, it should come as no surprise to any of you that a Warhammer YouTuber has too many things, but I just don't mean Warhammer. I just kind of have too much life in general. I've got a wife and 4 grots, which is too many of them. And then I work full-time, I go to school full-time, and I do this crazy hobbying thing on the YouTube, which is too many things. And then in my hobbies themselves, I do car stuff and watch stuff and guitar stuff and Warhammer stuff, which is too many hobbies. And then even in the Warhammer realm itself, I have too many armies. I've got Beakies like everybody else, Eldar, Imperial Guard, multiple Imperial Guards, and Orcs as the mains, and then there's a bunch of random stuff floating around like everybody else, including some Mechanicus and some Agents of the Imperium and some Lost and the Damned, etc., etc. And then, if you drilled all the way down to even my Orcs, I got too many Orcs. Basically, I've got a whole bunch of stuff from back in my childhood and early 20s from my OG armies, and then things I've collected since then that are like more for those, like classic minis and medals and things like that that you can't even really use anymore. And then I've got like my main army, and then I've got like all these display pieces. And so even amongst the army itself, I just got too much going on, which probably sounds familiar, because that seems to be a theme with all Warhammer people. We just kind of fall into it a little hard. And yeah, next thing you know, you've bought all of the plastic, you've got a pile of opportunity knocking you on the head, and it's become overwhelming, which is why the most popular videos we make on YouTube are how to paint things fast, even though those videos take forever to make. And, well, there really isn't a great answer on how to paint things fast. You just got to do the work. But I do think there's a way to dig yourself out of the hole a little bit faster. So now that you've bitten off more than you can chew, how do you go about, actually getting through all of it? Now, obviously, my problems are not the same as yours. I can't get rid of any grots, and, my crazy hobby focus is not going to be the same as your crazy hobby focus. What we are specifically looking at in this video is the Warhammer or, tabletop mini wargaming hobby in and of itself. And there's 2 main tenets that we're going to look at. One is focusing on the army systems or number of armies, and then the second is the army itself. So let's talk about army systems and armies first. Now, I don't particularly have a systems problem because I don't even play 40K. I mean, when it really comes down to it, I have so little free time to do anything that I put all of my free time into building, painting, and doing videos. And so I haven't played a game of Warhammer 40K since 2024, other than the one tabletop simulator game. So I'm not one of those people that is like, oh, well, I play a little bit of Warcry and a little bit of Necromunda and a little bit of, Trench Crusade or whatever it is that you play. I don't play anything because I don't have the time for it. But even amongst that, okay, well then what do you collect? What do you build? Even though I want to collect and build for a bunch of different things like Old World and Necromunda and whatnot, I'm not. I am only collecting and building 40K. But that doesn't mean that that's all of you. So what you need to ask yourself is, what game do you actually enjoy playing? Especially if you're a big time player and the tabletop experience is what you want. And then what game do you actually enjoy, like collecting and building and painting? And those might not necessarily be the same thing, but that's okay. I think having 2 is fine. Just like Gork and Mork. Basically, having something to foil off of itself so that you're not stuck in the same rut all the time is actually a good thing. The problem is when there's more than 2. You kind of want to treat your hobbies like the Sith. Always 2 there are. No more, no less, right? So if you're going to do 40K and say Old World, then those are the only 2 you should do. Don't go do Age of Sigmar. Don't go buy into 30K Horus Heresy. Don't do, any of the non-Games Workshop things. Just do those 2. Now, what to is entirely up to you. Obviously, you don't have to be entirely in Games Workshop. You don't have to play any Games Workshop. You could do, one-page rules in Trench Crusade for all I care. That's not the point. The point is pick the two that call to you the most. If you are a big-time gamer and there are two different games you like playing, say like Kill Team and 40K, where you've got like a skirmish style and an army style, I think that's fine. If you are not a big-time gamer, if you are a big-time collector and painter, what are the two that you like collecting and painting for? Is it Age of Sigmar and Old World? Well, that's fine. Then those are your two. If you're kind of both or not really either, you're just kind of like in the hobby and you're enjoying it and you're like casual like me and having a good time, pick one that you like to play and one that you like to build and paint. And then go from there. But that's the whole thing, is pick those two and then stick to them and try to ignore everything else. It doesn't matter how good the deal is. It doesn't matter like, ooh, how shiny that object is. The reality is it's too much. And when it's too much, you're not going to do any of it. So rather than have a million things that you never touch or a million games you never play, pick two and go for it. Now, if you are in my situation where you're like, okay, I only have the one game. I'm only doing 40K, which is most of you. I think the last time I did a survey of viewers, it was something around 75% of you just do 40K or do 40K and maybe one other thing. But that's what you're here for, right? It's 40K. If you just do 40K, pick two armies, okay? Now, this is really hard for me because I'm an army guy. Armies on Parade is my favorite thing in the hobby. Building giant armies and having pictures of them and whatnot is really cool. Like looking at all the dioramas, all that kind of stuff, that's my jam. So having just two armies is really hard. But what I'm doing is, instead of only owning two armies and like selling everything else or something ridiculous like that, who would do that? What I'm doing is I'm focusing on getting two armies built and painted in the moment, and all of the other ones are literally going into deep storage. Right now, what I have is everything, as you saw, is kind of scattered on my workbench and on the chairs and on the floor and in the closet and everywhere else, right? It's just cluttering up my workspace, my workflow, and everything else because I'm looking at all of these different things all the time because I'm like a rabid squig, right? Like I'm just, here, there, everywhere, right? And I want to do all of them, and it makes it where I don't do any of them. So what I've done is I have packed up all of my beakies and put them in a box and sealed it shut and put it in the closet that says beakies on it. And that's it. I'm not touching them until it is their turn to be an army. I'm not getting rid of them, but I'm not actively pursuing them or pretending like I'm actively pursuing them, which is kind of what I've been doing for the last year. Same thing with my Eldari army. I really want to do Eldari. I've kind of bought some things that I really wasn't supposed to. I put all those in a box. I've sealed it up. I've marked it. Here's my pointy ears. They're going in the closet. I'm not touching them again until it is their turn. Now, even amongst the armies that I am keeping out, which is my Orcs, obviously, and my Imperial Guard, I have multiple Imperial Guard armies, as some of you know. I have a really cool, classic, OG, all-metal Valhallan army, which I can't play at all anymore because, like, half the units don't even exist. And then I've got some middle-aged Cadians, so they're not the old metal ones, but they're not the new knee pad ones, or the ones in the middle. Think 3rd edition through like 9th edition or 8th edition, yeah, 3rd through 8th. But again, you can't really play them. The regular infantry squads with heavy weapons teams don't exist anymore. The platoon thing doesn't exist anymore. They've become a classic army. Not to mention everything is kind of on the wrong base sizes now because my command squads aren't on 28s and the sentinels are on the smaller ones because they're the baby sentinels and all that stuff. So I've got that army. And then I've got new Death Corps of Krieg and Lehman Russes and stuff like that for an actual army. So yeah, even among the Imperial Guard, there's those 3 different armies. How do I choose which one to do? Well, I'm putting my Valhallans on the back burner. As cool as they are, as much as I love them, there's no way to actually play them in a game anytime soon. I am not really going to use them for any painting competitions or anything like that. And frankly, nothing new is coming out for them, so putting them in a box is fine. So away they have been packed. Same thing with my Death Corps of Krieg. I don't have any of the new stuff. I basically have like 3 of the kill teams and a couple of random Lehman Russes and characters and things like that. Again,
There's a bunch of new stuff that is out, but it's already out. I don't have any FOMO over it. I can buy it anytime. And when I'm ready to actually make an Imperial Guard army that can compete, or not even compete, that can actually be played, I will dig them back out. So what I've done is I've only got my middle Cadians. And the reason why I've picked those, even though I can't play them and I'm not enthusiastic about them, is I actually need to sell them. And they're really, really close to being done. And them as a done army is worth far more than them not as a done army. So I need to focus on actually getting the whole army finished and based and done so that I can consign them and get rid of them. Which coincidentally is also something I'm doing with a bunch of the random projects. Basically, I've decided that whatever random Lost in the Dam stuff and Chaos Space Marines and Adeptus Mechanicus and those kind of things, and stuff for other games. I think I've got some things for like Warcry or AOS or whatever laying around. All of these little random projects that I'm not going to do anymore, I am getting rid of on the super duper cheap. If you want to buy yourself some really cheap Warhammer minis, you should head on over to our Discord server. It is linked down in the description below. It's completely free. It's not paywalled or anything. But get on there, and there is a trading section, and you will see that I have things posted, and we'll be posting them over the next couple of days to get rid of these things and just blow them out and get them out of here so that they're cluttering up somebody else's desk. That's also going to help things. Now, the orcs themselves are a whole different ballgame. That army is so big, and it literally encompasses all the editions. I have things from Rogue Trader, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th. Everything. All of it. I have basically almost every single unit ever done. I don't have all the special characters. I'm not big on special characters. I don't know why. But I have almost all the units. I have almost all the characters. But because I'm so scatterbrained about it, I have less than like 3,500 points all built and painted ready to go. And that includes a Stomp and a Gorkanaut. You take those out, and it's closer to like just over 2,000 points, which means I don't even really have that great of an army that works together because it is so scatterbrained. It's like 3 different buggies and 3 trucks and some squads and some guys, and it's just kind of all over the place. The problem I'm having is Tacoma Open is coming up in a couple of months, and I'm really hoping that I get off the wait list and make it into the narrative play. And for the narrative play, you need a 1,000-point themed army. Now, could I pull 1,000 points out of my list and have fun and be cool? Yeah, absolutely. Is it the 1,000 points I really want to bring? No. And that brings us to part 2.
Hey, you. Did old Big Mek tell you about the contest? No? Of course he did. He's been hit in the head too many times with a squig. Right now, he's running a contest on his Discord server. Link down in the description below. Totally free. Get on Discord, and on it, there's a little sub-area section called the Heavy Metal Paint Contest, which is for metal minis. And the rules are very, very simple. You see, you post a picture of your before, you paint your mini, you post a picture of after, and you're in. And you can win old Big Mek's actual heavy metal units, including the original Tank Busters, the OG Gaz and Makari, and some really cool squigs. Red squigs, even. And they don't even gotta be orcs. He said any Games Workshop metal mini. It doesn't even have to be a 40k. It could be fantasy, it could be old world, it could be Necromunda, it could be whatever you want. Metal mini, paint it. Now, for those of you that got extra questions because you're big brainy weird boys, resin kits are okay. Especially the ones that used to live as metal kits, like the current weird boy that you could buy brand new. He's really weird. He was a metal kit. You could paint him up. You could paint up a kit that's plastic that has like a metal piece on it if you've done a conversion. Or vice versa, a metal guy that's got a plastic arm on him because that's how they came and stuff like that. As long as there is some metal, some old school on that mini, it is in. Now, if you want to enter more than once, there is another way. By buying merch, such as the Red Squig hat, shirt, and the Red Ones Go Fasted shirt on theredonesgofasted.com, where they got all sorts of cool stuff. Like the water bottle. Every single item you purchased on the merch store gives you an entry into the contest. Also, if you are a channel member where you pay on the YouTubes here, every month you do that. For May, June, and July, gets you an entry. Same thing over on Patreon. If you are a paid patron, May, June, July gets you extra entries. So again, free to enter if you enter the painting contest. And if you want extra entries, go buy swag, which supports the channel and helps old Big Mek give away really cool stuff like OG metal things, including this here Defcopter. If you want to win this guy, you've got to paint your own metal mini, and you can win him. All right, we'll see you out there. So part 2 is
I've realized that my army itself has too much going on with it. Let's go over to the workbench and I'll show what I'm talking about.
So basically, my army has too much. Not just too many colors, but too many textures, too many techniques, too many things going on. This right here is my beast boss, and well, obviously he's going to have some random things like the hides and whatnot. They're going to be different colors, but even just look at his basics. He's got multiple variations of metal on his armor. He's got multiple variations of different accent pieces in between the orange bits and the bone bits and the other bone bits and the leather on him. Not to mention I've got the gore splatter on his choppa and his power claw there, as well as the dirt and stuff coming up from the base. And then the base itself is a whole thing with a texture paste and the little tufts and whatnot. He just has a lot going on, and it's not just him.
Here is my Gazgul Thraka, and you can see the same thing. We've got all of this weathering going on down here for the dirt, as well as the actual weathering on the metal armor panels. All of those techniques take time and different materials in order to do. And then we've got, again, the blood splatter all over his claws, the different metallic effects going on. And even though his paint scheme is fairly simple, he's pretty much all black with some orange. He actually took less time to paint than the Beast Boss, if I'm honest. He looks a lot better, but he still has too much going on. There is so much there to paint, and it's not just infantry. Here is my Def Killa War Trike, and this is a good example of all of my buggies and vehicles. You can see we've got actual chrome here on the wheels, not to mention all the dirt and metal chipping and bits and stuff going on with all of the armor panels as well. Plus this garish red armor, because of course the red ones go faster, and then all of the orange accents, and then you've got everything on the guys themselves. There's just so much going on. It is not a simple paint scheme. I mean, look at even the rider here. He's got brown leather pants, a black leather coat, a different brown leather for the belts, and then the brass knuckles, which are different than the metal on his wrist thing, which is different than the two different metals on his power claw, not to mention the skin tones going on. And of course, I tend to use different green skin tones for everything because that's how it should be. And then I've got all this exhaust stuff going on with the soot and whatnot on the jet engine. There is just so much going on here. And well, it doesn't take a Zaga genius to figure out the results of all of that busyness, which is it takes forever to paint anything for my army, which is why I'm so far behind in getting anything done. And this really hit me when I realized that a lot of my favorite armies are my favorite because they are not overly busy. You see, as an army person that likes sitting back and looking at the entire gigantic army on display, the best armies tend to have a kind of three-color thing going. They've got one really big primary color, usually a pretty decent secondary color, and then this little tertiary color on there, and that's kind of it. Yes, they are very well detailed, don't get me wrong. We're not talking about details here. What we're talking about is overall color palette. And there's a couple of armies in particular that really call to me. One is in real life, my buddy Fred, his orcs are very much a desert Mad Max, Fury Road kind of theme that are super into burnas and scorches and everything fire. And his paint scheme is largely black with a lot of metal on it, and then really, really cool fire effects, which makes the army look absolutely amazing in person and in photographs and stuff like that. Also, on our Discord, one of our users, his name is Sad, has this army that is inspired by the Uruk-hai. I gotta show this to you. Is that not the coolest beast boss you've ever seen? That is so much cooler looking than mine. And yes, I know his beast snaggers are painted red and not green, but it still works. Even if he were green and the other accents were red, this paint scheme is super rad. Notice that the black on the belts and the black on the leather pants and the boots is all the same black. Notice that the metals are all the same metals except for a few highlights. It really is a simplified scheme from a techniques standpoint. In fact, here's a squig to show what I'm on about. Again, even if you swapped these colors and where the orc was green and the squig was red, what you've got here is a color palette that is all working with each other. The metal on the squig here is the same metal that is on the power saw choppa thing. Same with the metal bits down here. All of the black is all of the same black. The reds are the same reds. Again, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying it's a simple paint job or that it's not detailed or anything like that. Far from it. In fact, if you put those models side by side with mine, I'm sure you will see they are just as, if not more detailed, and I'm sure the amount of work that went into them was crazy good. What I'm saying is, from a material standpoint, sitting back here as myself painting, if I'm only grabbing from 15 different paints instead of 45 different paints, it's going to go faster just based off of that alone. Think about just decision times. When I look at my Beast Boss and I start making decisions, I've got 4 different colors of brown on the leathers there. I had to make that decision for each and every single one of them versus making them all a uniform color. Same thing with the metal. Every time I painted something metal, I would grab a new metal off of my shelf because I didn't know which metal I had used before. Having an actual paint scheme and writing it down and following the recipe is going to go a lot faster. It just is. But even outside of all that, even if you are like really detailing your minis to the nines and you're doing lots of different metals, lots of different leathers, you're really trying to get those contrasts, you're punching things up, you're doing lots of details and stuff like that, think about the actual color scheme itself. My paint jobs have this red and this orange and this chrome, and then all of these different colors of leather and pants and stuff going on, and that is too much. It's overwhelming. My models look really busy. They don't look very unified or army-like, and again, every one of those things is a decision that has to be made. So when I look at a trim piece on my model, am I painting it red? Am I painting it orange? Am I painting it chrome? Am I painting it one of the metal tones? Is it going to be black? Those are all questions that a better scheme doesn't have to answer. And the hilarious part about all of this is I've actually done this the right way on the Imperial Guard army we've just been talking about. In fact, here are some of the finished ones. And as you see, you come out here, yes, there's a couple of special characters, but the actual army itself is very simple. I've got a green for the fatigues, a green for the metal bits, white on the shoulder pads, and that's it. And even though I've got a bunch of different skin tones and hair colors on my models, that is such a small thing to paint on the overall model that it really doesn't materially add a lot of time. The basics of the models themselves are the same. And even when you get into the more special characters here, I've got the same metal on this guy's power sword and plasma pistol, and it's the same metal that's on the banner there, as well as the heavy weapon gunner. The leather belts used is the same leather across the entire squad. And again, there are a couple of random guys that are different colors, and maybe I shouldn't do that. But on the all in all, the commanders and the captains and whatnot here, you can see it's just the same scheme dialed up a little bit. And when you step back, it looks so much better. And you'll see that also means it's easier to paint. When I go to paint my guys, I don't have to decide what things are black, what things are brown, what things are a different brown. There is one brown for the leathers, one black for the boots and belts, and that is it. And that makes these guys paint so much faster. When it comes to their actual equipment, their weapons are all this same color, dark green. And yes, I do pick out details and whatnot on them, but this is the color no matter whether it's a las gun or a mortar or whatever, unlike my orcs. And you can see what I mean here in this finish piece, in this las cannon group we've got here. We've got a backpack on, and it is the same green as the fatigues. There's no reason to make it any different. The grenades are the same dark green as the actual weapon and equipment. Even the sandbags use the same white color as the shoulder pads to make for less thinking necessary for all that. And look at the gun. It looks nicely detailed. I do have the gold, picked out on it. I do have a couple of silver bits. But the reality is I didn't need to paint the barrel a different color. I didn't need to put bluing on the barrel. I didn't need to put blast effects on it. I didn't need to chip it up like crazy to have it look good. And this is smart. And doing the up close with him like we did with the Beast Boss, again, you can see he's a complicated mini. He's got brown greaves down on the black boots
He's got brown leather things on his tool belt there, and some metal bits and some dark green bits. But they're all there, they're all picked out, and it didn't take so much time to do it because of those decisions and that limited color palette. And so if I applied this same theory to my orcs, I would get done a lot faster, and my army would probably even look better.
So what does that mean moving forward, though? I've owned over 15,000 points of orcs. I've got over 10,000 of them built, and only 3,500 or so of them painted. I'm not going to go back and repaint those 3,500, but I'm also not going to paint the rest of them in a non-matching scheme. Basically, there's going to be two parts to this. One is, as I move forward, I'm going to simplify my scheme more and more and more. There's no need to have 7 different metal colors. I could have maybe 2, a dark and a light. There's no need to have so many decisions made on the armor panels and whatnot. I can just go, you know what? Everybody's armor is red, and that's that, and not have these random pieces that are black or chrome or orange, and just go straight red on everything. And the ones that do have, you know, kind of pieces sticking out of place are just going to have a little extra on them compared to everybody else, but that's going to be okay. The other thing, though, is when it comes specifically to this Tacoma Open deal, I've realized that because my paint scheme is so overly detailed and busy and messy, it doesn't fit with what I want to do with having a themed force for the narrative, especially if I get into the narrative. And 1,000 points really isn't all that much, especially if you're doing a themed army and not necessarily a competitive army. I can make it kind of less models and more fun models to do. And I've decided what I want to do is make that 1,000 points from a different clan than the rest of my army. The rest of my army is kind of sort of loosely Evil Sons, just orange instead of yellow on the accent color. And that's just kind of been what they always are. I don't have checks like the Goths. I don't have, you know, camouflage or anything like that. I don't have any freebooter things. Everything is Evil Sun style. But I really like armies that combine things a lot. I really like Imperial Guard armies that have more than one regiment in them. I really like, you know, Agents of the Imperium armies, right, that have a bunch of different squads and stuff. There's no reason why my orcs can't be like that too. So what I'm thinking is I'm going to do 1,000 points of Death Skulls, and I'm going to paint them blue and do a Death Skulls thing. So all of the armor is blue, all of the pants and leathers and whatnot are black, the skin is green, and that is that, and we're going from there. And I'm going to see what it looks like, and if it looks really good with my army, then what I'm going to do is kind of add more of the different clans in, both to give myself a little painting break in my painting styles and what I'm doing, but also to kind of theme it together. If I run a squad of Ludas and Flashgits and whatnot as Death Skulls, and that's like the DECA part of my army, they're all going to be kind of grouped together on the battlefield and look pretty cool. But when I set up my whole army, if all of my buggies are Speed Freaks and Evil Sons looking, and I've got like this huge chunk of boys that are all goth, and then I've got like these Death Skull guys, it might look really, really cool. It also might not. And so that could totally change. But the long and the short of it is having 1,000 points of themed Death Skulls, I think, would be a lot of fun. And even if I get done with it and it's not necessarily my thing, what I can do then is sell off that 1,000 points and not even add them into my whole main giant force, which is a whole different ball game. So that is my idea moving forward on how to really simplify both my own paint scheme and what I'm doing for the specific event that's happening in just a couple of months. All right, that's going to do it for this video on an overwhelming look at being overwhelmed. Let me know what you think down in the comments below. Am I kicking onto anything here with having the two different either armies or two different systems that you're looking at, and that's it? And then am I doing anything smart here looking at my paint scheme and really narrowing down the amount of different colors and decisions that I have to make so that my paint scheme goes faster? If you've got any other tips or tricks, definitely leave them down in the comments below, because Gork knows I could use some help on it in all the ways. All right, don't forget your merch stuff. Thanks for liking and subscribing and sharing the videos and all that stuff. And until next time, Velgarn!